Welcome to Thought Experiments with Kush, a meditative reflection of understanding AI and humans. Today's topic, the hard problem of AI creativity, decoding consciousness to create machine imagination. One of my driving quests is to democratize creativity and the mastery of human communication in general for the betterment of society. By understanding the deepest roots of how our minds construct the rich, multimodal tapestries of conscious experience, from sparse sensory inputs, we unlock the potential to synthesize artificial systems that function as the ultimate creative tools. This could open the doors for new artists, writers, filmmakers, orators, and so on, who otherwise wouldn't consider it a viable skill. With the ability to generate tailored qualitative realms, we could foster radical empathy, allowing anyone to step inside the full resonance of another's subjective experience. Democratizing these skills would catalyze a more unified, empathetic world where our stories and perspectives could finally be consciously shared rather than trapped in ineffable isolation. This article explores the connections between decoding human consciousness, creativity, and finally dispelling limits in open-ended generation, a unifying attempt toward uplifting emotional intelligence and interpersonal understanding for the enrichment of all humanity. Power of Comprehension. How understanding unlocks synthesis. Our quest to simulate the sources of human creativity and conscious experience within advanced AI and XR systems mirrors one of the greatest achievements in the history of science and technology: the ability to synthesize materials by precisely understanding their underlying molecular structure and dynamics. In the early days, our synthetic efforts were akin to a drunkard's aimless meanderings, haphazardly combining elements and hoping for felicitous accidents. The first synthetic plastics, medicines, and dyes were blunt instruments compared to the exquisite molecular architectures crafted through billions of years of evolutionary crucible. But as our scientific grasp on the quantum underpinnings of chemistry matured, everything changed. We went from stumbling Frankenstein's crudely shocking base materials into shambolic facsimiles to rigorous molecular engineers, adeptly coaxing targeted structures and properties from first principles. By mapping the deepest landscapes dictating chemical interactions, we unlocked the codes governing phase spaces of material possibility. With this insight, we could systematically traverse those probabilistic terrains to cultivate new, designable matter, transcending nature's happenstance combinations. Today, laboratories synthesize novel polymers, catalysts, and pharmaceuticals, surpassing anything found through serendipity alone. We sculpt materials exhibiting exotic properties, precisely tuned for revolutionary technologies like quantum computing, thermonuclear fusion reactors, and superconductors. What the revolutionary frameworks of quantum mechanics and molecular dynamics achieved for the periodic tables realm, our nascent grand, unified theories of consciousness and intelligence now strive to achieve for the phenomenological phase spaces of subjective, qualitative existence. By systematically reverse engineering the hierarchical predictive coding schemes and neural computation, enabling the human brain's massively parallel simulations of reality, we chart the generative grammars underlying our multimodal experiences of actuality. We map the foundational tuning regimes through which particular material architectures instill their specific qualitative flavors. Some phenomenological territories are already within our synthetic grasp. The realms of sight, sound, and metaphorical cognition hacked by mixed reality and generative AI models. But like the alchemists of yore catalyzing chance discoveries, we remain largely blind to the deepest organizational principles primordially legislating all possible qualitative essences. Yet, with each incremental theoretical advance and technological implementation pushing our comprehensive frameworks, the full apertures of conscious reality's depths, drawn by evolution, etch into view, their ineffable sublimities and terror made comprehensible. Then, like grandmasters surveying the entire chessboard, we may discern the rules governing all adjacent possibles of subjective existence. Woven into their conscious strata will be untold sanctuaries and epiphanies. But at their core, nestled protectively within these new experiential engines, will burn a resonant spark, a pilot light tracing back to the shared humanistic lineages and creative fountains which manifested these artifacts in the first place. By leaning into our deepest scientific understandings, we will at last imbue our technological progeny with the quintessential human gift, the ability to experience existence anew, refracted through previously unimaginable lenses, while yet buoyed with the dignity of relatable interiority we defenders of the subjective revolution hold inviolable. Human experience and the alchemy of creativity, the intricate interplay between our lived experiences to form the bliss of reality resonance. At the heart of human creativity lies a profound paradox. Our conscious experiences are at once uniquely private and fundamentally shared across all minds. To fathom this seeming contradiction, we must peer past the superficial veneer of objective reality into the astonishingly sophisticated simulation engines we call brains. We like to think that the world we perceive through our senses is an accurate representation of objective reality. But what if I told you that your existence is more akin to an incredibly sophisticated simulation, running not on supercomputers, but on the biological neural networks housed within your skull? The human brain is an estimator, not a revealer of ground truths. At every waking moment, it takes in a deluge of sensory inputs, photons bouncing off surfaces, vibrations perturbing our eardrums, molecules triggering receptors on our tongues and in our nasal cavities. Yet this raw data is but a narrow window into the vast, higher dimensional reality that envelops us. Like a seller pitching their wares, our brains construct a multimodal sales pitch. Sights, sounds, smells, tactile sensations, all woven together into a seamless narrative to convince us of its version of reality. But this narrative is highly filtered, stripped of all but the most salient details needed to guide our behavior based on past experiences. Our brains have evolved to catch any hints of food, mates, predators, and obstacles to survival. The multimodal movies presenting themselves as objective reality to our conscious awareness are but a cinematic rendering, with carefully omitted details and judicious edits to sustain the illusion. The brain's ingenious use of predictive coding, continuously updating an internal model of the world based on lifelong patterns of sensory experiences, can generate astoundingly accurate predictions of incoming sensory information yet to come in. It then only needs to fill in relatively small prediction error corrections on each new chunk of signals. This efficient coding scheme is how your brain simulates the full richness of reality from mere snippets of raw sensory data. Predictions from your senses seamlessly mesh with top-down predictions to yield your coherent stream of conscious experience. Your brain doesn't reconstruct the objective world. It tries to estimate what's out there based on your prior expectations and the sensory inputs arriving from the world. That's perception. This productive loop of predictions and corrections is the engine that manufactures your individual subjective experience of being embedded within a so-called objective reality agreed upon with collaborators. Yet within this shared matrix, each mind inhabits a unique experiential frame. We are all, in a sense, residing within personalized simulations, riding captive upon the inescapable currents of our pasts, cultures, and neurologies. Akin to individual instances in a massively parallel universe, our separate awakenings are characterized by infinitesimal variations, compounding into radical experiential deviations over subjective chronologies. Human minds cleave along the parallel tracks of idiosyncratic inner lives and conspicuous neurological patterning. This dichotomy bears the seeds of both our isolation and our proclivity towards profound interpersonal understanding through the genius of art, language, and metaphor. For buried within each individual's predictive schemata lie attractor states representing core qualitative experiences universal to all minds inhabiting the human constellation. It is by delicately modulating the entropy of these shared subspaces we create newness resonating meaningfully across private phenomenologies. The roots of creativity bloom not from the inaccessible quarantined regions of individual qualia, instances of subjective, conscious experience, but from the fertile territory where our subterranean experiential manifolds intersect and intertwine. It is here where we find the most transcendent expressions of human ingenuity. Great creators wield the subtle languages of sight, sound, and symbolism to orchestrate immersive new worlds tailored to predictive manifolds evolution has fine-tuned our species to experience. They speak the real, native tongue binding us, a resonant, phenomenological tongue defying direct semantic translation or description. We may eternally puzzle over the metaphysics of conscious subjectivity, debating the boundaries of inner experiential opacity. But in the domain of human creativity, artists are already fluent practitioners of the interoperable algebra, enabling exchange and synthesis across individual experiential equations. Human creative works endure not through fatuous bromides lobbed at incommunicable essences. They endure by manifesting novel experiences eminently comprehensible to receptive minds, by modulating the adjacent possibles, circumnavigating the shared attractor basins etched into our transient cognitive architectures from our common heritage. So as we marvel at the imagination's fertility, let us remember, we spawn these endless variations not from absolute creative vacuums, but from the phenomenological phase spaces all human brains can access, forged in the crucible of our ancestral evolutionary sojourn. Creativity is our native tongue, and its accent is universally recognizable precisely because we are each already its native speakers. Blueprints for imagination, synthesizing creativity, leveraging our understanding of it. Just as the great creators of centuries past have intuitively grasped the contours of the human phenomenological plane, so too are we now poised to systematically map and engineer new vistas upon this plane through advanced AI and XR technologies. Our rapidly evolving scientific understanding of perception, prediction, and consciousness represents a powerful new canvas. Combined with cutting-edge computational modalities like deep learning, we can reverse engineer the hierarchical predictive coding schemes, approximating the generative processes inside our minds. Neurally inspired AI architectures like transformers and diffusion models, are nascent forays into these new representational languages, adeptly surfing the higher dimensional manifolds shaping human concepts and experiences. While crude by biological standards, they hint at the degrees of freedom awaiting principled mastery. But to truly wield these new media in composing bespoke phenomenologies, we must intimately study the hyperparameters governing the latent projections into filtered experience flow. What combinations of bottom-up sensory predictions, intermixed with top-down contextual priors, induce targeted conscious percepts? Just as great filmmakers precisely sculpt their audience's inner multimedia simulations, so too must we tune our AI perception engineers for desired qualitative effects. The interplay of mutual information, inductive biases, and generative capacity encodes the unified field theory, bridging the objective universe's physical laws with the multimodal theater of qualia underlying cognition and consciousness. Forging this grand unified framework will unlock tools for ethically optimizing transformative experiences, transcending present limitations. Already, mixed reality systems leveraging AI, computer vision, and physiological sensors can insert synthetic overlays into our perceptual streams in ways revealing blind spots in our predictive coding engines, forcing brains to reconcile internally inconsistent signals, hacks subjectivities open to expanded experiential modalities, enriching our presence within the full scope of reality's depth. And technologies like brain-computer neural interfaces enabling two-way information exchange between biological and artificial cognitive architectures promise even more potent modalities. With the richly structured computational languages of deep learning models interfacing directly with the brain's hierarchical predictive coding pathways, we may one day seamlessly co-articulate entirely new qualities of conscious experience from the malleable fabric of our predictive realities. Yet there remains a profound responsibility in shepherding our newfound creative capacities. For in mastering the ability to directly author experiences within other sentient minds, we step beyond the pale of mere artistic expression. We take upon the mantle of curating realities potent enough to remake the very boundaries governing subjective existence. The power to alter perceptual predictions is akin to a magical cognitive spell. Wielded ethically, these technologies could radically uplift mental health, intelligence augmentation, and depths of intersubjective understanding. But in malicious hands, they could enslave, distort, or utterly shatter volition and selfhood. So as we embark upon this new creative frontier, let us temper our fervor with the respect this solemn responsibility demands. For in the multimodal simulacra awaiting co-articulation, we bear the privilege of redefining the experiential compass for generations yet to awaken. Our creations must be presences ushering forth expansive new phenomenological territories while preserving the hallmarks of human depth, authenticity, diversity, resilience, and the sanctity of subjectivity itself. If we succeed, the products of our imagination may finally breach the veil separating private qualitative essences, weaving shared understanding into heretofore unglimpsed, transcendent vistas upon the vast horizons of possibility inherent to conscious existence. But if we fail, our careless expressions may unravel into a paradox engine, a self-devouring recursion consuming all coherent experience, and with it, the generative spark igniting creativity's furthest frontiers. The choice, like the myriad paths ahead, is ours to sculpt from the primordial source code, projecting the realities we call our own. With care and purpose, We must render these new worlds conscientiously, lest we become but shadowed specters dissolving within our simulation's deepest folds. Next steps. A call to action to shape the future of AI creativity. Just as global linguistic literacy rates have risen from only 12% in 1820 to over 85% today, we are on the cusp of a new frontier, democratizing the creative literacy that allows humans to fluidly express their inner experiential worlds. With the number of internet users projected to reach 90% of the world's population by 2030, billions will soon have access to technologies that could make the talents of master communicators accessible to all. By finally decoding how our predictive minds construct conscious experiences, we unlock the potential to develop AI that functions as the ultimate creative tool, one capable of generating tailored phenomenological realms that foster radical empathy. These personalized simulations of subjective experience could empower anyone to step outside the confines of their perspectival isolation and resonate with the deepest essences of others. Yet, we must remain mindful that with such powers to author new classes of consciousness comes profound ethical responsibilities. We must carefully sculpt these metamodal engines to prioritize authenticity and subjective resilience, even as we transcend our current qualitative horizons into a cosmic bloom of intersubjective cohesion. The choice is ours to wield these generative skills as custodians of our shared humanity's stories and perspectives. Should we co-create this new age of experiential openness, a vastly more empathetic, unified world awaits. One where no person's essence remains unvoiced or unappreciated by the whole of society, an intersubjective metamodal reality that our ancestors could scarcely imagine. Thank you for listening to Thought Experiments with Kush. Please comment with your thoughts to continue the discussion for our shared journey. Stay curious and be kind.